All right, Bills Mafia, take a deep breath. The injury talk is heating up around Buffalo's training camp, and as always, the panic levels are spiking. But before we start sounding the alarm bells, let's slow it down and look at what's actually going on. Because yeah, there's a long list of guys with bumps and bruises right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean disaster is around the corner. Let's start with what's dominating the headlines: soft tissue injuries, hamstring soreness, tightness, all those vague but slightly concerning phrases that send fans spiraling. And look, it's fair. You see a bunch of names piling up on that injury list and it feels like the sky is falling. But here's the thing. This isn't just a Buffalo Bills issue. This is happening all across the NFL. Why? Because it's training. Camp. Because these guys are going from off-season mode, where they're working out, lifting weights, running on their own, into full-speed football movements. And that's a massive difference. It's one thing to be in shape. It's another thing entirely to go full throttle cutting, accelerating, taking contact, reacting in real time. That transition always comes with a cost. And every year we see that cost in the form of minor strains and tweaks is just the nature of the beast. So when you see players coming off the field without limping or needing a cart, but they're still listed with something like a hamstring or soreness, that's actually a good sign. That's the team being cautious. These are likely grade 1. Injuries, the mildest level, and most of them fall in the day-to-day to 2 weeks range. This is especially true for veterans. There's no reason to push them in July when you need them healthy in September. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep our eyes on some names. A guy like Terrell Bernard, for example, has had soft tissue issues before. Hamstring stuff, pectoral stuff. So if he's banged up again, maybe they give him the full 2 weeks to recover just to be safe. Recurrent soft tissue injuries are where you want to pay attention. But the rest, for now, just part of the process. Then there's the situation with Tyrell Shavers, the wide receiver who scared the hell out of everybody a few days ago. He went down in visible pain, was screaming, had teammates consoling him, and got carted off. That looked bad. But according to the latest reports, it turns out to be a low ankle sprain, and that's the best case scenario. 1 to 2 weeks and he should be back. But again, the reaction to that moment was understandable. When a guy is screaming and getting carted off, your mind immediately goes to fractures, dislocations, high ankle sprains, the stuff that lingers. Hell, when you hear he got rolled up on during a play, it's hard not to assume the worst. So getting confirmation that it's a simple low sprain is a relief. Doesn't mean he'll be back tomorrow, but it's not seasonal thing. Now, let's talk about the one that's drawing a little more long-term concern, Spencer Brown. Still sidelined, still not practicing. And yes, this is one to keep an eye on. This is a guy who's had back surgery before. That's not something you just play through if it flares up again. The Bills are clearly being patient, but this could easily become one of those nagging in and out issues all season long if not managed right. The upside is that someone like Tyrell Graybell has reportedly been turning heads in camp. He was doing the same last year before his injury, and if he stays healthy, he might be a key depth piece, especially if Brown takes longer than expected to return. But when we're talking about continuity on the offensive line, a group that kept Josh Allen as the least sacked quarterback in the NFL last season, the idea of not having your starting right tackle is a big deal. We're all hoping Brown is back in time for week 1, but this isn't one you rush. And then there's the weirdest injury update of the week, maybe of the offseason so far. Tyler Bass and his pelvic pain. That's not a phrase you hear often when it comes to football injuries. If they had just called it a groin issue or a hip flexor, nobody would be raising eyebrows. But when you hear pelvic pain in a kicker, that's specific and potentially serious. Here's why. There's an area called the pubic symphysis. It's where the two halves of the pelvis meet deep down in what's affectionately being called the sacred zone. Inflammation in that area is called osteitis pubis. It's essentially bone marrow swelling at the joint, and that can linger. Best case, he's just a little sore and they're shutting him down early. Worst case, this turns into months of rehab and possibly injections just to get through it. And remember, this is kicker. His entire job is about fluid explosive. Motion in that area. Even a small misalignment or a bit of pain can throw off accuracy and power. And don't forget, this kind of injury has history. We've seen players like Jairus Byrd battle this same issue in college. It's no joke. If it develops into a sports hernia or something similar, it might even require surgery. Yes, that surgery is usually a success, and guys often return in 6 weeks or so. But that's 6 weeks out for a position where timing and rhythm are everything. For now, it's just something to monitor closely, because if he's still dealing with this in a couple of weeks, the Bills might have a real problem. Switching gears again, Dalton Kincaid. There's a lot of concern bubbling up about his knee, and for good reason. Last year, he missed 4 games with a PCL sprain, and apparently he didn't have any procedure to clean it up. That's not unusual with PCL injuries. Unlike ACLs, which are often surgically repaired, PCLs are usually treated conservatively. But that doesn't mean they can't come back to haunt you. If the sprain was bad enough to keep him out for over a month, it's possible he's still dealing with some residual looseness or instability. That kind of micro instability can lead to swelling discomfort or even aggravate other structures in the knee like the meniscus. Could it be something totally new maybe? Could it just be irritation flaring up again? Also possible. What's concerning is that this isn't just a random depth piece. Kincaid is the guy Buffalo is counting on to make a leap this year. They told him in the offseason, get stronger, get healthier, and now here we are in camp. And he's still looking skinny, still wearing 2 knee braces, and still showing up on the injury report. That doesn't inspire confidence. And look, he's not a guy who's ever going to be super bulky. He's more of a hybrid tight end, almost a big slot receiver. But when your frame is lean and your knees are suspect, that's a recipe for trouble. Over a long season, he needs to be out there getting reps, building chemistry, and instead he's managing an injury again. That's a tough way to start a breakout year. Meanwhile, Dorian Williams is another name to keep tabs on. He was in a boot recently with what appears to be a calf strain. That's not nothing. Teams don't throw a boot on for fun. Even if it's precautionary, there had to be real discomfort there. That kind of strain can cost a couple of weeks minimum. And while Williams isn't a starter, he's absolutely a key rotational piece, especially if the linebacker depth continues to thin out. The good news, he was spotted more recently just wearing a sleeve, so maybe things are trending in the right direction. But every missed day is a lost rep, and those matter especially for a young player trying to cement his role. Add to that, the fact that someone like Baylon Spector is still viewed as a liability on coverage, and the pressure on Williams to return healthy and effective only grows. But let's get to the biggest emotional roller coaster of them all, Matt Milano. Now there's been a lot of optimism around his return. The dude is built like a tank, and when he's coming downhill, he still looks like his old self. But there's a catch. When he has to cover ground laterally, change direction, stay with a running back on a route, that's where the red flags are starting to show. There was a moment in camp where James Cook cooked him on a simple route out of the backfield. And we're not talking a little slip. It was a full-on 6 yards of separation, clean as day. Milano pulled up, shook his leg out a bit, and the reaction from those watching was not encouraging. That knee isn't 100%, and maybe it never will be. This is the reality post-injury, especially for players who rely on agility and burst in coverage. Think about Von Miller, same deal. That first year back, he wasn't himself. And Milano, for all his toughness and intelligence, might be trending in that same direction. Straight line speed, still there, but short area quickness, lateral movement coverage range. Those things are harder to recover, and they matter just as much, if not more. One last quick note before we wrap this section. Keon Coleman, the rookie wide receiver, has drawn a lot of buzz lately, and it's well deserved. The guy's a physical specimen, but let's not pretend he's the second coming of Stephon Diggs just yet. He's not a separator. He's not going to win with crisp route running. He wins with physicality, with size, with contested catches. In camp, especially without pads, that kind of receiver doesn't always shine. And early on, he dropped a couple of pretty bad passes. But once the pads came on, different story. He bounced back strong, made plays in the rain, looked like a guy who thrives when the game gets a little more real. That's a great sign. But also a reminder, development takes time. Not every rookie is going to dominate day one, and that's okay. If there's one thing that makes or breaks a football season, especially for a team like the Buffalo Bills that has Super Bowl aspirations, it's health. Not just at the quarterback position, not just the star playmakers, but across the board. Because every year it's not just about who has the best roster on paper, it's about who can keep that roster on the field. And right now, while the Bills aren't exactly in crisis mode, there's enough smoke to make you wonder if a fire could be brewing. Let's circle back to the offensive line because while Spencer Brown's situation has already raised concern, it's also worth noting how fragile that entire group can be. Continuity is key for offensive lines, and Buffalo had that in spades last season, which is a massive reason why Josh Allen stayed upright more often than not. But offensive linemen don't rotate. They don't get rotated like wide receivers or running backs. If one guy goes down, everything has to shift. You don't just plug in a backup and keep moving like nothing happened. You're talking about chemistry, communication, knowing how to pass off stunts, how to slide, protect, how to handle blitz pickups, and those things don't get built overnight. If Brown isn't ready, and if Graybell isn't truly up to the task, then you're already looking at a potential domino effect up front. That becomes even more serious when you consider that the Bills' offense might be asking Josh Allen to evolve again this season. With Diggs gone and a new wide receiver room trying to find its identity, Allen's margin for error will be thinner, his time in the pocket more precious, his decision-making under even more pressure. So losing any key piece of protection, especially someone who's finally healthy and coming off a full off-season like Brown, isn't just a minor inconvenience. It could fundamentally change the way Buffalo has to operate. Now let's go back to the linebacker situation, because it's quietly becoming one of the more volatile positions on the roster. Matt Milano is back, yes, but the lingering doubts about his coverage ability post-injury are real. And when your best linebacker is possibly losing that part of his game, the depth behind him matters even more. That's where Dorian Williams comes in. He might not be a household name, but for the Bills coaching staff, he's that next man up. And right now, he's in a walking boot. Now he's out of it. That's the good news. But again, let's not sugarcoat it. If a guy needs to be in a boot even for a couple of days, that wasn't just a twinge. That's pain. That's swelling. That's a strain or worse. So if he's dealing with a calf strain that's even moderately severe, we're looking at multiple weeks of recovery, and that's multiple weeks without live reps, without full speed reads, without the kind of growth a second-year linebacker needs in order to actually be ready when the real bullets fly. And the drop-off behind him, not encouraging. If you're hoping for Balin Spector to suddenly make a leap, you might want to recalibrate those expectations. The guy just hasn't shown the kind of instincts, awareness, or physicality needed to be trusted for extended snaps. So if Williams isn't right and Milano can't cover like he used to, and Bernard's dealing with recurring hamstring stuff, then what are we really looking at here? A linebacker room that's one more injury away from full-blown crisis. And then there's the secondary, a group that's been in flux for what feels like the last 3 seasons. While most of the injury buzz has centered around the front 7, we can't ignore how much pressure is on the back end to hold it all together. And if those linebackers are struggling in coverage, guess who picks up the slack safeties and nickel corners? Guys like Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer aren't getting any younger. Christian Benford and Kaya HELM are still developing. Taron Johnson is as reliable as they come, but he can't cover the entire middle of the field by himself. The margin is razor thin. Every unit is connected, and when one cracks, the others bend. That's how breakdowns happen. That's how plays get busted and games get lost. Now swing it back around to the kicker, because I cannot stress this enough. You never ever want to be worrying about your kicker's health in training camp. This is supposed to be the most automatic part of your team. You don't think about your kicker until he trots out there in week 10 with the wind swirling and a game winner on the line. But now you have Tyler Bass, a guy who's been nothing short of clutch throughout his time in Buffalo, suddenly dealing with a very rare and very delicate issue in a very sensitive part of the body. The pelvic pain might not be a season-ending injury, but it's the kind of thing that gets worse if it's not handled perfectly. And the issue is this: you can't really rest a kicker during the season. He's got to kick. Even when you limit his reps, even when you manage his load, he's still going to be swinging that leg in warm-ups in practice, in games. There's no way around it. So if this pain lingers, if it's even slightly misdiagnosed, or if it becomes chronic, you're looking at a potential drop in performance at a position that simply cannot afford it. The line between a playoff bye and a road wildcard game often comes down to 3 points. One kick, one swing of the leg. You don't want to be guessing in that moment. Let's be clear, this is not the Bills falling apart. Far from it. This is what camp is a test of endurance, of depth of planning. It's where your medical staff earns its paycheck. It's where you find out if your strength and conditioning program is actually working. It's where coaches earn their stripes not just by installing schemes, but by managing bodies, figuring out when to push, when to rest, when to protect the player from himself. And the Bills aren't doing anything wrong here. If anything, they're being smart, cautious, conservative. They've seen what happens when you lose key guys before the real season even begins. But that doesn't mean the concerns aren't real. It doesn't mean fans are overreacting. There's a difference between panic and awareness, and it's completely fair to look at this roster right now and say, we need to be careful, because while soft tissue injuries might be minor in a vacuum, they add up. They compound. One guy goes down, the next guy has to do more. And if that guy is young, inexperienced, or just not ready suddenly, that position group becomes a weakness. And the NFL is ruthless about exploiting weakness. Look at what we've already seen. Dalton Kincaid once again dealing with a knee issue that kept him out multiple weeks last season. No surgery, no cleanup, just management. That works until it doesn't, until the inflammation comes back, until the swelling doesn't go down, until you're managing something for an entire season that never truly heals. That's not a theoretical risk. That's a very real possibility if this lingers. And it's made even worse by the fact that Buffalo's passing game needs him more than ever. Or take Matt Milano, who is undeniably one of the most important players on this roster. A tone setter, a playmaker, a leader, and still we're watching tape of him getting dusted by a running back on a basic route. That's not just about one rep. That's about what happens when he's put in space in a big moment against Travis Kelce or Jamar Chase on a cross, or even a sneaky back like Jahmyr Gibbs. If that knee doesn't hold, if he can't break down and redirect the defense, I'll be on skates. And then there's the psychological weight. Because when the injury report starts to pile up, even with small stuff, it creates tension. Guys start overcompensating. Coaches start rotating more aggressively. The reps get jumbled. The rhythm gets disrupted. You start having players pressed into roles they aren't fully ready for, or players pressing too hard because they feel the weight of filling in. That's how mistakes happen. That's how bigger injuries happen. And let's not forget all of this is happening before a single preseason snap, before a single full contact game against another team, before the real hits start. The wear and tear from training camp is real, but it only intensifies once the season begins. And if you're already managing 4 or 5 soft tissue injuries in July, you better hope your depth is elite, because come October, those backups might be your starters. Keon Coleman is a bright spot, sure. And yes, he's shown flashes. But he also dropped balls early. He also has a learning curve. He's not going to replace Stephon Diggs overnight. So for this offense to really work, you need everyone, not just Josh Allen, to be locked in. That means protection. That means timing. That means health, especially when your best tight end is already managing a knee, especially when your kicker is feeling pain in an area that could completely derail his swing. Especially when the defense is balancing optimism for a recovered Milano against a very real concern that he's not the same in coverage anymore. And we haven't even mentioned Von Miller yet. Another star, another ACL recovery, another guy whose presence matters as much mentally as it does physically. But again, like we saw last season, the return to form isn't always linear. Sometimes it doesn't come at all. And if the pass rush is inconsistent and the linebackers can't cover and the offense is stuck adjusting on the fly without reliable pass-catching tight ends or a healthy line, well, that's not just a couple of isolated problems anymore. That's a team trying to hold it together with duct tape. So here's where we're at. The injuries right now aren't catastrophic, but they are significant. They matter. They're flashing yellow lights on a team that doesn't need to panic, but does need to pay attention. The next few weeks will be critical, not just for getting guys healthy, but for seeing who steps up in their place, who seizes an opportunity, who can handle the pressure of playing meaningful reps before the lights come on. Because ready, or not, September is coming, and once that clock starts ticking, there are no more excuses. No more he's day to day. No more we're being cautious. You've either got a full roster that's clicking, or you got holes waiting to be exposed. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. Whispers are swirling around the NFL as the Buffalo Bills seem poised to make a bold move under center. Rumors have emerged suggesting that JAYDEN Daniels, a young and promising quarterback, might be the team's new signal caller. While nothing has been officially confirmed, insiders close to the organization hint that Daniels could soon take the reins, signaling a new era for the Bills' offense. Daniels, known for his sharp decision-making and impressive athleticism, has caught the eyes of scouts and fans alike. His college career showcased not only his ability to make big plays, but also his calm under pressure, traits any team coveting a franchise quarterback would covet. Buffalo, having gone through a period of searching for consistency at the QB position, might see Daniels as the fresh talent capable of steering the team toward long-awaited playoff success. Speculation is mounting that the Bills front office has been quietly working behind the scenes to bring Daniels on board. Sources suggest that talks with his representatives are progressing, with the potential for Daniels to assume a significant role from the start of the season. Should this happen, it would mark a strategic shift for Buffalo, emphasizing youth and potential over experience. The move would energize the fan base eager for a dynamic playmaker to lead the charge in Orchard Park. This possible transition also raises questions about the current roster and the future of veteran quarterbacks within the franchise. If Daniels does become the starting QB, how will the coaching staff manage the transition? Will there be a mentorship period or an immediate leap into the starting lineup? The buzz around town is electric, with analysts debating whether Daniels has a skill set to thrive in the Bills' offensive scheme and handle the pressures of an NFL spotlight. Though nothing is set in stone, the chatter suggests the Bills are ready to bet on a young gun who could redefine their identity. JAYDEN Daniels represents not just a new player, but a potential cornerstone, someone who could shape the team's trajectory for years to come. As the offseason unfolds, all eyes will be on Buffalo to see if this rumor turns into a groundbreaking reality. The excitement is palpable, and the Bills faithful are holding their breath for what could be a game-changing announcement. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.